student-centered approach, to the learning outcome approach, to the approach where competences and skills are important and not only knowledge. So we can't do it with one step. And there are a lot of barriers and a lot of difficulties. And that's the reason, actually, why we would have this reflective report and why you have exercises, especially in the group with Eva and Anita, how to contextualize your experience for your organization. So in the first, I think it's a little bit, it's not easy. If you by the way, we are very surprised that we were so creative and so many new ideas. And you saw it wasn't easy for us, for ourselves, because there was some mixture. Sometimes we couldn't say, well, it could be non-formal, it could be informal, depending. Yeah. So there is some fluency about these different situations. So when we come back now to the formal system, that's the system we are used, because we live in this system and we adapt. We use the system. And in a little bit, in a way, it's a little bit more complicated now to think, how can we find ways around to change the system? We have different kind of levels, we have different stakeholders, and I would like to show you how could we do it with the approach of learning outcomes. So what I'm going to do now is, in my presentation, I will give you 4 aspects. And these aspects, they have some importance. More important from the second one. The third one is if you are working on kind of curricular development or ID or in some kind to apply these educational designs. And the fourth one is if you're a teacher and want to address this issue, but we thought also other people could use them. For instance, in the public relations department, yeah, you could think about it, because if in the future the people will judge university not only about the content they transmit to the student, but to the skills the student would have if they finish their study. So it's a little bit now thinking on the reverse side. So the first point is, what are learning outcomes? Why are they so important? It's important to show and to demonstrate your skills, and this is also very important for the assessment as well. So learning outcomes are focused now on the student-centered approach, and this is one of my main aspects in the talk. I will talk about the differences on these different kind of approaches and how we could, well, change this. The working definition for learning outcomes, we will do this in the next 2 days with real exercises. Yeah? Learning outcomes are just statements, written phrases, yeah? And what you expect a learner to know, to understand, better to demonstrate the skills. We will go a lot in details, because if you can formulate and if you can judge learning outcomes, it will change your point of view on the assessment, on the teacher's skills, on everything. So, but keep in mind, that's the back side. We're coming from behind now, yeah? Addressing, that was the idea of the 3 talks. John talked on the general level. He gave us the international overview, yeah? But always picked with his experiences in his university. And it's important to know that this is an outstanding example. Our university as well is a university for further education, continuing education, and all what John said is appropriate for our universities, except the idea, that the genius idea, that we will individualize the studies for the students. So what we are doing, as every university is doing, we take their competencies and see if they fit to our studies. We don't know, we haven't this procedure
to build up new kind of studies to fit the competences of the students, and to bring it on the academic level. So the important thing, what John said, is that there are these two procedures, but mainly I'm talking now about the main procedure, the procedure that is normally now done at universities and most of the universities. So what we're thinking now is, how can we do kind of curricula with learning outcomes, but the idea is the learning outcomes are broader. They are not only this knowledge and this knowledge, factor knowledge, they are broader, to fit in this lifelong learning system and to have a kind of a way to change the system as a whole. So when we describe the qualification, then we would have different kind of concepts. We would have this kind of workload. That's very important. We are calculating the workload of a student in hours, in learning hours. I learned this from John, the English word is notational hours, notational learning hours. It's not the physical learning time, in a case that you have, let's say, you get a certificate after 6 weeks, but it's the time you have spent on this issue really learning. Yeah? That means reading, looking at the internet, comparing something, discussing something, to going to the seminar, to sitting here and hours, yes, but you also had your preparation, and your preparation is also kind of learning hours. So let me come now to the learning theory, and this is important for the approach to change to the student-centered approach. I'm now in the transfer mode, meaning I have a concept, and I want to transmit some kind of knowledge to you. And you see, that's more, I have chosen these pictures here, the teacher in front here, kind of an authority. I'm speaking, you listening, yeah? Listening is an active enterprise, but not so active as talking and discussing, yeah? So, and normally I say, this is correct and this is wrong, yeah? So I'm really the person who says what is correct. The second one, I call it learning 2, is I show you something. Let's say, I will bring afterwards an example in scuba diving to give you some ideas. I show you something, I demonstrate you something, and I watch you, I observe you, what you are doing. But in swimming, for instance, I do not swim with you. I just stand behind you and I say, okay, your arms aren't correct, you have to breathe, yeah? But yeah, I'm watching you, yeah? But it's the difference, I'm with you with the knee in the water, yeah? Not outside in the pool, yeah? As in the first. And the third one, that's a real situation where we work collaboratively on a subject, on a problem, yeah? Solving some task. And the third one is a little bit dangerous in the teacher's perspective, because it can fail. When we do a project, there are so many perspectives and so many circumstances, we can't control everything. It's the financial situation, it's the time budget, somebody is ill, yeah, and missing something, or whatever happens, yeah, we haven't the control, but that's the real life situation, yeah. So what we are doing normally in teaching 1 and even in teaching 2, we describe problems to our students, but problems we know the solution and how it goes to solve it. So it's like a didactical reduction of the problem. Yeah? We have a lot of data, but we don't present these data to students because they aren't relevant for the problem. But in real life, you have to sort out yourself which data is necessary and which not. So we, let's say we educate you as a problem solver, but with constructed problem by the teacher, and we do not educate as a problem generator, where has new ideas and says, I have to change this and that. But it's important to know, especially in my profession, educationalist, all of them want to be on the constructivist side and want to be coach. And I'm not agree with them because I bring always the example of scuba diving. I learned scuba diving with bottled water in Mexico. And I was so happy that we didn't start to go underwater 10 meters immediately. He explained us everything outside. Then we used the swimming pool, and we did some exercises. And after that, we really went under the sea under 10 meters and made the assessment. Yeah? So what I believe is a kind of a development of a different kind of knowledge career you have to go. But now let's talk about knowledge and skills. There is a big difference about them. We have we differentiate knowledge in three ways. There is some kind of a static knowledge. And normally, especially in my profession, when I was educated as a teacher, or in my school time, it was very important. We had to learn a lot of things. Yeah? For instance, Soviet Union, and all this kind of stuff. But it changes so much. Yeah? For instance, we learned at that time Austria has 7 million people, but now it has 8.5 million. Yeah? And this kind of knowledge, actually it was overloading us. We had to learn and we had to repeat it. But this knowledge you can look up in the internet or in other areas where it is adaptive and where it is on real time is changed so that it is correct. So what we would need is to reduce this kind of declarative knowledge because it's a very constrained knowledge, it changes much and it's overload us with not so useful things. And then we would have this kind of procedural knowledge. And all the people say, oh, procedural knowledge, that is important. Then we would have how to do it. Yeah? But keep in mind that procedural knowledge, how to do something, that's more on a holistic point of view. For instance, how to make a public phone call. I have to know that I have to take the receiver. Well, now, that's an outdated example. Everybody has, but let me explain. You have to take the receiver and then to put the coin in it. Yeah? Otherwise it wouldn't work. So we have some kind of sequences. Yeah? But, very important, procedural knowledge is still a theoretical knowledge. For instance, I know how to change a spare tire from the car. Yeah? But, well, I can't do it because I have 2 left hands. Yeah? I'm not in the... But it has to do with my body, with my conception of the mind, and it isn't enough just to know it. Yeah? So we have this problem also to do it. Yeah? It's difficult with cognitive things, because we think, well, that's the same, but also our brain is a kind of a tool of an instrument. And if you learn, for instance, formulas in mathematics, it's different to apply them. Yeah? So you have... It's a big difference. And the third one I did here is knowing where. We need nowadays a lot of kind of social knowledge because it's necessary to know where are made the decision, for instance, in the organization. Where I get the information. Yeah? And also for I'm doing this. So this kind of social knowledge is growing in importance, and you understand social knowledge is difficult to teach. No? We're coming now in an area where some kind of tacit knowledge or informal knowledge is necessary. But on the other hand, we have these competencies, abilities, skills, and there is really a gap. You can't go from one side to the other side just by cognizing it, just by thinking something, just by remembering or drill you something. Yeah? You have to do it. You have to do some practice. And this is important now that we, in our society, we value the left part much more than the right part. We say, okay, educated here, and then you have your own experiences when you are on your own. Yeah? A little bit further education, okay, come in and we will show you. Yeah? But your experiences, we do not support your experiences. Sometimes you are in a narrow field, you don't get all the experiences, yeah? You haven't the contact to other people's and you can't exchange your experiences. It has a little bit changed now with the internet, because there are a lot of portals where people exchange their experiences without, sorry, I have to say, without academic knowledge. Yeah? They just say how to do it, yeah? And it works. So some people believe that even this kind of knowledge arises from practice knowledge. So when we go in this world with our body and we talk to other people or we work, then we get some knowledge, we acquire something, yeah? And this something we could also put in academic terms. But people believe without experiences there is no knowledge at all. So that's the other side of the argument. And this is an idea by Hubert Dreyfus. He is a philosopher. I was there in Berkeley and worked with him. And he said there are different levels of expertise. And the first one is more to remember. We need this information processing. The second one is about this know-how. It's a beginner. For instance, when I want to drive a car, you have to explain me about the driver, but then I have to do it. But the beginner has not much experience. He's very rough and he has to think about it, and he's slow. Yeah? He makes a lot of mistakes. Even doesn't know that this is a mistake. The third one is normally the level we say now your competence is enough. You can go outside and you can go for work. We call it competence. But I call it here skill 1. It's a kind of a competence, you can solve this problem, but something like in a Hamlet way. Yeah? You have to think about it, you have to reflect about it. It's not done at the fingertips, it's not very like an expert. Yeah? And this is the reason Hubert Dreyfus worked against this artificial intelligence idea that everybody every computer could be an expert just with rules. Yeah? And then he came up with the fourth, he called it implicit knowledge. It's to understand it much better, to have the idea fluently. And the last one, the expert, call it the expert, are persons who have patterns in mind. We think about more than 100,000 patterns in your mind. Think about it, 100,000 patterns, because you build up this kind of patterns, some kind of configurations, and you match the real situation immediately. So a good manager, or let's say a soccer player, yeah? Soccer player doesn't stand and say, okay, here's the goalkeeper, here's the door, so okay, yeah? Yeah? He does it. And when you ask him why he made the goal and all are happy, sometimes he says, yes, okay, I saw that something, but that's not true. Yeah? He had some kind of a feeling, intuitive feeling. Later he can express it in words, but it was some kind of an experience of a pattern he did. There is a lot of experiments going on, especially with check playing, yeah? Because they tried to build up artificial intelligence systems. They are better check players than humans. Yeah? As you know, they are now. Yeah? At that time, they had big problems. Yeah? But the idea was to give you the idea and to go in detail, just this example. They had a video camera and they had a player, and they said, okay, please move and tell us what you are thinking. And they thought if they know what they are thinking, in the end they can build artificial intelligence systems. And it started well. The Czech players told every move, but in the middle of the Czech game, he didn't talk anything, just moved. But with the video camera, everybody saw that a lot of eye movement were going on. And then they talked to them, yeah, what did you think? And that was very disappointed for the researcher, because the tech player said, well, I had a similar situation, yeah, and I thought if I'm going with this with this queen here, then I would force this situation. He couldn't explain it, yeah. So it had in mind a similar situation and tried to copy this similar situation. So it was the idea that there are patterns in our mind we can't express quite well, and we can't. A pattern is a holistic thing. You can't explain it with all these kind of things. So what are now coming back to the learning outcomes? We have the problem that we have to assess this different kind of knowledge, and people came up with a kind of a taxonomy. This is a very famous one. It's the well-known, I think. Maybe some of you already know the Bloom taxonomy. It's way back from the 50s. It's still applicable. People use it, but you can see, interesting enough, we have substantives here. No verbs, no doing. Yeah, are concepts here. And pupils of Bloom made a different taxonomy, starting with 2001, a pretty new one, and they put it in a two-dimensional table. Here on the x-axis you see, but they are verbs now. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. You see, remember the level 1, yeah, and create. We had this constructivist level. And then they decided about facts, concepts, procedures, and also metacognitive level, meaning the level how to learn, how to judge your own activity. And this taxonomy we will use also for the learning outcomes, because it's a nice tool with this two-dimensional table. I have here a comparison. They are pretty similar, except of step 5 to 6, then there is some difference. And one point is very important. In the Bloom taxonomy, knowledge, factual knowledge, has a much more importance than it has in the other taxonomy. Okay. Now, next. It is important to understand that the higher level of competencies include the lower level. Meaning, if you analyze something, you should also understand the thing, because otherwise you could analyze it. Yeah, yeah, that's not so trivial. Yeah, but you see, if you judge it, you need to analyze it, yeah? And you need all the other skills below. So that's we call it inclusive hierarchy. You have included it. In the smaller one and the included one, like you call it the Russian matryoshka. Okay, it's like this, yeah. Inside, and okay. So that's just coming back. This is the idea that we have this kind of different learning styles in the taxonomy. We can say they fit in the taxonomy, but keep in mind everything is necessary, not just the coach approach. And these are, I tried to match it with the concept of the EU. The first one was a paper by me and Sabine Bayer, and this one, well, they haven't yet matched with the taxonomy. That was my work, but it perfectly fits to this taxonomy. I think that's important that we have some new finding in the research work, but also compliance with the terms and procedures. They are mainstreams and done by the European Union. This is a little bit what Eva told us about the qualification framework. So this is now to give you the idea about this circle. Actually, it's not a circle. It's a kind of spiral. It's the right word, spiral? Spiral, yeah. It's going up, no? It's not on the place, yeah, it's going up. And what it needs is some kind of interaction with the object that is normally you are doing in technical terms. You work on something and you work with the object. But we also need to discuss it and to reflect it and then to interact it, to implement it in the society. Every technical innovation needs a kind of a social innovation as well, because we have to adapt it to the society, to the market. Yeah, we have to see what is the competition and when can we win and so on. So this is kind of a summary. And now let us go more in detail about the methodology. Now we're going back and we really want to think, how can we do now, or how can we taking all this knowledge that we have about these different kind of learning styles and this different kind of teaching modes, how can we do that and to put it in guidelines for education and curriculum design? The first one is clearly define the learning outcomes. Normally, that's not so easy. I have to confess, even in our university, I'm a member of the Curriculum Commission, and the change from input area to the learning outcome is pretty difficult, because professors are used to say what they want to teach. They aren't used to say what students should have skill afterwards. Yeah? And they say, well, there's this book and it's important that students should know. Yeah? They don't think about, they are more input driven. Yeah? I'm the professor and I know what to do and I will say them this. Yeah? But to define the learning outcomes, they have to put it on the other side. They have to think in the end, what should the students know? And as a matter of fact, it's a little bit also sad for teachers, because if it's important what you know, then it is not so important if you know it by my teaching or by your reading or by your doing. In a little bit, as a matter of fact, yeah, if the outcome matters, the input, the way of input and how to get to this knowledge, it's not so important anymore. So in a certain aspect, it's also, and maybe that's one of the reasons why we have problems that we can change, yeah? Because if you have this knowledge already, why you should get in this course and to make it another examination of a knowledge maybe you know better than the teacher because you have done it 30 years. I want to talk about this kind of hierarchy. There's another inclusive hierarchy. But now you can see that you have different educational levels. This is important for adapting the learning outcomes to your university, because we have different levels and you have to think about it on what level you would like to implement the learning outcomes. In the first three levels, there are no learning outcomes at all, because learning outcomes start with the module approach. Because in the modularized curricula, you have to put learning outcomes and you have to assess all the knowledge in the module. By the way, it's a problem because we didn't think about this, that there is a lot of examination to be done. At first we thought, okay, there's some kind of modularity, and if we think on Lego, yeah, put together these pieces, then it would be very nice to have small pieces, so they could fit together in a better way. But if you have small pieces, then you have to have learning outcomes and assessment of all the small pieces. In the end, you have a curriculum full of examinations. So now we're on the way to make bigger modules. We started, let's say, with two ECTS or 3 ECTS. Yeah? Now we're going more to 6 or to 10 ECTS. I think in our country there are different hours per ECTS. In my country it's 25. I think in yours it's 32, as I remember. Nadia told me. So it's a little bit harder in your country, yeah, to get in ECTS. And then you have to think about the module, and then also the curriculum. They should fit with the module. So you need also to write learning outcomes for the program. Yeah? That's maybe important now for the public relations thing, because these are the learning outcomes you put outside. If a student comes to your university and takes this study such and such, then it should have this kind of skills, and these skills are important for the market, for the employers. Yeah? So you put here the skills after the program is done. You have also your institutional, in the institution to define what kind of learning outcomes, how you divide it, yeah? Have you small learning outcomes, what kind of culture you would have. And then we have this legalization issue. Yesterday Nadia talked about it, I'm not sure if you have heard it, and she showed us, I think it was 3 slides full of Russian regulations to put in place this kind of new system piece by piece, yeah? And it's pretty complicated because it's done piece by piece and not always coordinated. But the legislation is important. For instance, in Austria we have a discussion if it's more important that the teacher is in class and he just gets paid for teaching in the classroom. And that's a problem because the teacher is preparing, he's assessing or she's assessing, yeah? And it's not only the classroom anymore, yeah? It's your learning. You're learning, and your learning is not only in the classroom. So we have to change the regulation. We have to say, for instance, if you, let's say, if you're in an online course, yeah, I'm doing my answering and my feedback at home, yeah, not in the classroom. And you judge it by the quality, but also by the responsive time. Yeah? I can't say if you are in an online course, okay, next week we have the next hour for our seminar, I will answer it. Yeah? So it doesn't make sense. So we need different kind of quality assurance, yeah? And different aspects, and this is regulated in the educational system. What I wanted to say is here that you have to find your place here. We are working in one of these areas. We have to observe the higher levels, but with our work we can also a little bit change and put pressure on the higher level that it can change. And in all these different levels you have different laws of changes. So you have different access modes. And now coming back to curriculum. We have some kind of global objectives that's more or less providing a vision, but what's really important is, I call it educational objectives. These are designing the curriculum, the module. That you will say when you have, let's say, 70, for instance, our training here. We have 64 hours of learning time. We have 3 days face-to-face time, yeah, meaning 30 hours. We have, I can't remember exactly, we explained it in the website, 15 hours preparation time and 15 hours for your preparation for the assessment. All in all, 72 hours, and you get 2 credit points to your ECTS. So that's the way now we think. And we also formulated, remember, Isabel, when we started, she explained to you the learning objective and the learning outcomes. Participants after the seminar, remember, yeah? And this is this, how to come the slogan, yeah? The students will, and after that you have put some word in it, some word, not only word, verb, yeah? And it should be a verb you can assess. So it's difficult to say student will understand. How can you assess understanding? Okay, but the next one we call alignment. The next one is select the correct teaching methods. Because if I say you should be able, let's say a very simple example, how to call it, juggling, yeah. Okay, I want after the seminar that you can juggle with 4 balls. Okay, So it doesn't have many sense if I'm standing here and I will explain you how you have to put in the ball and so on. It doesn't help either if I would demonstrate it to you. Yeah? So I have to think about it, some practices, yeah? And then in the end, you should demonstrate it. We would have an examination. Yeah? And in this examination, that wouldn't be a multiple choice test, right? Because it doesn't make sense. Yeah? You have to demonstrate it because you have to show it. Yeah? So we have to address the teaching methods and also the assessment methods to the learning objectives. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. I made this joke, but please keep in mind it's done always this way. We have very high skills. We say students should communicate and should be processed or should be analyzed or something, and then we put them in a multiple choice test, and we know that the multiple choice test is focused on remembering, and it's very low. So this is also, as a matter of fact, if you're really serious with learning outcomes, you have to change your teaching methods, but more than that, your assessment methods, where all our assessment methods are more or less written or verbally, and if we want to test skills, we need other kind of assessments. Okay, we'll have this exercise with you in the next few days. We have different kind of cognitive processes, and this would be an example of a learning objective. Students are able, we start every sentence with this, students are able to, and then say some verb, apply in this case, apply the concept of learning outcomes to their curriculum. Okay, so that this will be done, our exercise in the next 2 days, so that you can formalize learning outcomes and also think about it, how to assess it, and what kind of teaching method to take. I give you here an example I've done. I'm now the responsible person for the National Educational Report in media development. And we looked at the curriculum in Austria. Isabel did it, yeah? And they formulated, they reorganized it now with learning outcomes. Yeah? And they were very proud of it because it was the first time they did all this kind of learning outcomes very systematically. But it turned out that the learning outcomes are much too small. They had, I think, 75 learning outcomes or something. Yeah, you're laughing, yeah, but yeah, an expert is laughing, but yeah. And so they are too much fine-grained, yeah. And when you see, we tried to analyze it in the taxonomy, you can't see much in analyze and evaluate, yeah. You see some in create, yeah, but this is on media design, so it means you can set up a WordPress weblog, yeah. It's not creative in the sense, so we are doing some technical skills here, yeah, but at least you have some here, yeah. Most of them are in procedures to apply them, yeah. And I think this gives a little bit an evaluation sheet, yeah. It's poor done in analyze and evaluation. So I'll come now to the assessment, the last one. I have here the two different perspectives. We have the teacher's perspective, that was the old one. I have my objectives, I put it in some kind of teaching hours, and then we have teaching activities, and in the end there is the assessment. But now it's the other way around. I have to think about the assessment, how to prove the skills, and what kind of teaching methods and how to do it. So it's the other way around. But here you will see most of the type of assessment is still done on a very traditional way. We have most of our teaching, even if it's very, let's say, innovative teaching, is done by lecturing, by the way. This is also the reason why we have big problems with burnouts by teachers, because the teacher not only want to lecture, want to address questions. Yeah? but lecturing. So he wants to be in control. And it's very demanding to be in control if people want to ask or want to discuss something. And it's not very, at least in my country, there are, let's say, a certain strength. They are very suspective about working groups. If people are in working groups, for instance, if you are teaching, as me now, you get more paid for the hour if you are addressing and organizing working groups, because they believe that you are doing nothing in that case. It's another price. So that's very strange, because normally it's much more demanding to organize working groups and to get to a result and to help them and to change from one group to the other one and so on. We have in Austria at least some kind of hierarchy in this kind of competencies. That's not so important for you. I want to go a little bit faster. I want to address your grading system, because the grading system also is very important. Here, maybe this is also a nice slide. Maybe the next one is the better one. You can see here the alignment of the different kind of assessment methods to the taxonomy. Multiple choice you see is on remember and maybe a little bit understanding, a little bit. But our reflective report would be more on apply, analyze, evaluate side. We could also make a project. We don't have the time. Projects are very time consuming. We have this essay, here this essay. And clearly enough, there are other possibilities as well. The oral examination. Unfortunately, I think the colleague from the medicine is gone.
Another is there. Another surgery.
I was advisor from the medical universities, and they told me that they have demonstration cases. They have when they have assessments. People have to come in and have to do something, and they are watched. And there are, for instance, washing hands. It's not so easy. So very. You have to do it several times, and there is some kind of procedure under the elbow and so on. Or they have to put the vaccine or something else. So that's, in my point of view, that's more on the skill side, and we should think in other academic spheres as well. How could we judge and how could we set up procedures where we have more assessment on the skill side? Okay, here we have a checklist about the knowledge, but this is also done in our working groups. And now to the last one, how to assess these learning outcomes and how to match it with the, let's say, what was intended. And this is a little bit difficult because we have different kind of grading systems and different kind of how to judge the assessment. Sometimes in pedagogical issue we have some kind of assessment. Well, you didn't meet the criteria of the course, but you started very poor. And finally, well, you get a higher level. It was fine for you. You didn't meet the criteria of the course, but you made some advances. Well, this isn't allowed, no? Because you have the learning outcomes and you have to meet the learning outcomes. There was some individual progress, but in the end, you didn't meet it. This is, most of the people are not using them, but it makes sense in other cases, especially in informal learning, non-formal learning, but also, let's say, for kids or if you don't have grades. The next one is the social benchmark. It's a tricky one. For instance, if I have a course, and maybe, yes, let's assume now our seminar, Imagine that we have this final test and nobody passes it. Then we would have a problem, okay? Or let's say some very few people pass it, and then you think about it, yeah? And then you go against the, you look again into the essays, and you say, well, but actually this isn't so bad, right? We could put a better note, so we could put forward this one and that one, and we are driving for a so-called Gauss curve, yeah? So that we have a very few very excellent, yeah, and very few poor. Poor is necessary, yeah, so that people can't pass. So say that's a really strong test. There are some people that didn't pass it. Yeah, this is the social benchmark. Yeah, actually, from the standpoint of the learning outcomes, it's not allowed. Yeah? But you see there is some kind of difficulty. Yeah? The third one is the learning objective benchmark. We define before what kind of skills you need, and we assess them and we grade them. This is the Austrian one. Here I have the Russian one. This is just an example. Here you have the learning outcome. You will get all the slides. Yeah. Here you have the learning outcomes, and then but this is on the other way around, because in Austria the worst grade is 5. So we have it the other way around. Yeah. I'm a little bit nervous if people are just talking about disadvantages or just talking about advantages. So I put also forward some disadvantages of learning outcomes. One of them is that learning outcomes are very concrete and they are very to the point, and people believe that the academic system should be open, should be wider, should be free. We call it in Europe kind of a humanistic education. Yeah? So some people believe that learning outcomes is a reduction, yeah, to some kind of knowledge. The second one I have already mentioned with my joke is that we would have an assessment-driven curriculum. Yeah? We would teaching to the test. We know what the test is, yeah, PISA test and so on. Yeah? Now we have this big discussion in Austria because we are now changing our system, and the people know what the test will be, and then they teach just to the test, nothing else. This kills some creativity, kills some idealism. Yeah? And the third one is that it's not easy to implement the learning outcomes if it isn't fully implemented, because it's a system change. You can't have learning outcomes in one seminar and not in the other, or not in the curriculum, or not at the university. So this is difficult. You can't do it piece by piece. It's more or less a framework for the whole curriculum and university. But 2 pages now, 2 slides of advantages. Yeah? One is help the teachers to tell students more precisely what at the end they have, what skills they have. Help teachers to design the materials. Because when I know you should have this kind of skills, I should look on my material if it's fulfilled is clear. Yeah? So another one is to calculate. Students have to calculate the learning time, and they have to observe the learning time. They have to know how many hours. For instance, my first seminar, I had the problem that I'm teaching e-education. And we had a kind of a forum where people present ideas to each other. And then we had the material and then the test. And in the material they had to do some activities. And some people put a lot of effort in the forum, yeah, just for 3 ATS, 75 hours, and they had 50 hours in the forum. Yeah? And then they get the task they really had to do. And they were very disappointed because they didn't read that they just has 25 hours for the forum. Yeah. So students now have to observe their learning style, and you can help them because you say them what is assumed. It's always a, let's say, a calculation on the sample. Yeah? There are students, they are more experienced, they don't need so much time, and others they need more time. But on the, in general, it should fit. And the second slide will say that we had different kind of assessment now. We will differentiate the assessments. And also, if we would have learning outcomes, we could communicate better what we are doing in our teaching. Yeah? Because we can say, when in my teaching, students have the ability to do that and that. Okay? Yeah, and the last one is to ensure the appropriate teaching and assessment strategies. By the way, that's one we are a little bit missing. As a professor, well, it's for me important the content, yeah, and in the end there is this final exam, and sometimes this is a commission, it's not only me, yeah. So, but nowadays you have to think about the assessment as well. Okay, so thank you so much, and now